What's up, guys? Babs Money here with another episode of Dragatha Christie's Unsolved Mysteries. You like that? Did you like that action? It should be known that this wig used to look... Matter of fact, I'll show y'all right... She used to be this spiral curl gig that was the full. Honey, I revived her, and now she's ready for action, ready to pump out the gigs. Today, I know I said we were going to be discussing the case of Aisha Degree, and we still are going to be doing that, but today we will be discussing the suspicious death of Tamla Horsford. Oh yes, honey. You've probably heard about it. Might not have, but you're going to now. Bitch. Oh, girl, I forgot I was recording. The death of Tamla Horsford occurred on Sunday, November 4th, 2018, so about 20 months ago. And this happened in the small town of Cumming, Georgia, which happens to be where the case of Patrice Andres from Unsolved Mysteries, the reboot, happened, and baby, we gonna get into that one day. Now, this was a case that received public attention after it was basically swept under the rug by Forsyth County officials and ruled a suicide, even though we know that's not what the happened. This has been requested by my dear friend Sarah, and I had not heard of the case before she mentioned it to me, so I said, let's get into the gig. And baby, we're gonna get into the gig because it is what wild, fantastical talk. Now, Tamla Horsford was born in 1978 in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and her family moved to the Bronx in 1989 when she was about 11 years old. She ended up meeting her husband Leander in Florida. He had a daughter from a previous relationship, and they went on to have 5 children together themselves. Their youngest child was only 4 years old when Tamla died. By all accounts, Tamla was the life of the party. She loved to laugh, sing, dance, cut up and have a good old time, bitch. Now, when the Horsfords moved to Georgia in 2013 for Leander's work, it was this warmth and charisma that attracted people to Tamla. People like Jean Myers. Myers was a friend of Tamla's who had invited a group of moms, most of whom had met through the local youth football league, to a slumber party for her birthday. And this group of people, of course, included Tamla. She wanted everyone to spend the night so that no one would have to drink and drive. Of course, because we don't do that. Because baby, back in the day, I did that like twice. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Don't drink and drive. If you think that you can do it, you're not going to do it. Because bitch, I'll pull up. I'll pull up and be like, honey, cease and desist, cause you're Christ and desist. Now, the night of the party, which was Saturday, November 3rd, 2018, Tamla made dinner for her family and then headed to Jean's house to celebrate. And she arrived at the party at about 8:30 in the evening. She arrived with a bottle of tequila as well as a small overnight bag. And when she got there, she changed into white pajamas that had dog paw prints on them. The party was intended to be all women. However, Myers' boyfriend, Jose Barrera, and a man named Tom Smith, who was the husband of another attendee, ended up sticking around. So the ladies stayed upstairs and drank and partied and watched football, while the 2 men also watched football, but downstairs in Myers' finished basement. Many have pointed out, while we're talking about the attendees, that Tamla Horsford was the only black woman at the party. Starting a little early in this case, but baby... It took me a while to get to this point. A while. And because I am what? Sickening the house. The house, bitch. The f***ing house. And you know it. In the end, the group included 9 women, 2 men, and 1 husband who, according to police interviews, only showed up to drop his wife off and pick her back up. Out of the 12, 8 were planning to stay the night, and this included Tamla. During the party, Tamla, who, according to witnesses, was the only habitual smoker at the party, would regularly step out to the balcony to smoke a cigarette. She had also smoked marijuana that evening, but Jean asked her to stop, and according to her own statement, she kind of teased Tamla when she asked her to stop, calling her the female Bob Marley, and reminded her that her boyfriend, Jose, did not approve as he worked as a parole officer. Mind you, I would have been annoyed because I partake, obviously. Bitch, you gonna invite me to a party and try to tell me I can't have my good old creef? That's whack. Also, it's different for me because I don't drink. Tamla also drank. Bitch, you ain't about to tell me I can't have my gigs. I would have had to hit it to the house. Eventually, the men joined the party and the group played the game Cards Against Humanity. Such a good game. If you haven't played it, do yourself a favor after this video, go get it, slap it down on the table, and get your life. Photographs and videos, I have a couple photographs, show that Tamla was happy and having a good time for the most part, it seemed. Good old Kiki, good old moment type shit. Now, she had been drinking tequila, but despite the fact that she was later found with a significantly high blood alcohol content, according to photos, videos, and witness accounts, Tamla didn't appear particularly drunk that evening. Like, even for a seasoned drinker, I'm just gonna jump ahead a little bit, her BAC was 0.238. And just full disclosure, when I had my first DUI, my BAC was 0.14. So she had twice the BAC that I did, and so, I'm like, if her BAC was that high, you would think she would be just sloop-de-doop-de somewhere in the house, just out of it. Anyways, guests who weren't spending the night started to leave around 11:30 p.m. And those who were staying the night over the next couple hours. According to police interviews, Tamla was still awake when Jean and Jose went to bed around 1:30 in the morning. The last person to see Tamla was a woman named Bridget Fuller, who was picked up by her husband at 1:47 a.m. In her statement, Fuller says that Tamla was eating a bowl of gumbo and told her that she was going to go smoke a cigarette and then she was going to bed. Sounds reasonable enough. Bitch had got turned, needed to get her some meat up in her system and hit the hay, sus. Nothing wrong with that. But what is wrong is what ended up happening to her, which was not a good night's sleep after her good old gumbo pot. Over the next 10 minutes, the home security system registered that the back door opened, then closed, and then opened again one last time at 1:57 a.m. The bitch never closed. So what's the tea on that, America? Now, around 8:45 that morning, Madeline Lombardi, who was Jean's aunt, who happened to live at the house, went into the kitchen to make her morning coffee. In her interview with police, Mrs. Lombardi described seeing something chilling through the window in the backyard, which was the white dog print onesie. And of course, it was Tamla. She was face down in the grass, motionless. No, Elkie, you cannot come in here because then you will speak lies.
Elkie, stop it.
After saying a prayer, Lombardi went upstairs to find Jean and told her that something seemed to be wrong with her, quote, friend from the islands, end quote. What the is that supposed to mean, Miss Madeline out of line? At 8:59 a.m., Jose Barrera called 911. He pointed out that there was a small cut on Tamla's wrist and suggested that it might be self-inflicted. Jean's voice can also be heard in the background during the call, speculating that Tamla might have fallen off of the balcony. Girl, bye, shut up. You know she didn't fall off that balcony, you whack-ass, white-ass hoe. The police arrived 8 minutes later at 9:07 a.m. The initial autopsy ordered by the Forsyth Sheriff's Office discovered, quote, multiple blunt force injuries, end quote, as well as a high blood alcohol level, as I mentioned. Officials speculated that it was this high BAC that led to Tamla falling off of the porch and that her injuries were just a result of the 14-foot fall. However, Horsford's family and friends were not convinced with this theory and called for a second independent autopsy, which was then carried out by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, otherwise known as the GBI. According to their medical examiner's report, Tamla sustained severe injuries to her head, neck, and torso. They also discovered cuts on her face, wrist, hand, and lower leg, as well as a, quote, laceration to her right ventricle, end quote. Now, the GBI toxicology screening found a blood alcohol level of 0.238, as I mentioned, as well as THC and alprazolam, which is an anxiety drug, in her system. Whatever. Her kids were at home, she was letting loose. Now, even before the autopsy's results, speculation of foul play had begun to spread like wildfire online. And this was prompted by the Forsyth County Court firing Jose Barrera 2 months after Tamla Horsford's death. You want to know why they fired him? Because this is where the goo gets gooey, mama. At the time, Barrera was a court officer who was being fired for internally accessing the incident report of Tamla's death multiple times. He had previously been placed on administrative leave for using his position to, quote, access confidential files on a current investigation surrounding a death in which you were a witness, end quote. Damn straight. You can't just be doing that shit. You're involved in this case and you trying to use your power to get up there and get the scoop and goop and catity cat cow. No ma'am. Why do you need to access the files? It wasn't until February 1st that an incident report was written mentioning Barrera's actions. In addition to the findings, Tamla's close friend, a woman by the name of Michelle Graves, claimed that Barrera stated in the report that he had exposed Tamla's, quote, work and cell phone numbers, home address and work address, and driver's license, along with information about her height, weight, and extended family, end quote. Barrera has denied and continues to deny this. Hundreds of people started sharing the hashtag Tamla Horsford and questioned different angles of the case while calling for justice. The case was officially closed on February 20th, 2019, barely 4 months after the woman's dead. Even though 2 months ago, they had to fire one of the witnesses because he was using his position to access incident reports. Alright, bitch. What was it all? Now, as I said, the case was closed and ruled an accidental death. Major Joe Perkins of the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office stated that none of Tamla's injuries aligned with foul play. Quote, it was a party. They were drinking, she was drinking. Most of the party goers had gone to bed at that time and she was out on the deck alone, end quote. Major Perkins had interviewed 30 people, including family, friends, and other partygoers. Woo! Many, of course, question the balcony fall theory, including fellow party attendee Stacy Smith. Smith told police, quote, I don't get it at all. I've been on that deck like 1,000,000 times. I've looked and I've tried and I don't understand, end quote. You see, she was talking about how she tested a theory that while she was so drunk, Tamla tried to lean over the balcony railing to vomit. Another friend of Tamla's, named Diane Couliveris, has lingering questions. She says that she got several inconsistent stories from the group that she refers to as the Forsyth 12. Quote, the accident theory just doesn't make sense. Not when everyone there said she was fine, end quote. And that's what I'm saying. She had a blood alcohol content of 0.238. Last person that sees her says she's just eating a bowl of gumbo, says she's about to go smoke a cigarette and go to bed. She's fine. And mind you, a lot of people pointed out that Tamla was a seasoned drinker and that it would take a lot of alcohol to knock her on her ass. But still, this just doesn't add up to me. And also has THC and alprazolam in her system, so she's been mixing substances. But she's fine? Doesn't add up. Sus. After fading from the public eye for almost 1.5 years, Tamla's death became a topic of advocacy during the anti-police brutality protests of 2020, spurred by the murder of George Floyd. On June 5th, 2020, the Horsford's attorney, Ralph E. Fernandez, wrote a letter to Tamla's husband, Leander Horsford, claiming that his team's investigation into the details of the case strongly suggested homicide. The letter said, in part, quote, witness statements are in conflict. A potential subject handled the body as well as the evidence prior to law enforcement arriving. Evidence was disposed of and no inquiry followed. The scene was not preserved, end quote. He also stated that Tamla's injuries were, quote, consistent, end quote, with those of a physical struggle, but that the absence of photos from the initial autopsy prevented a definite conclusion. He also pointed out that not taking photos must have been done under someone's directive because having an autopsy without any photos taken is extremely unusual. An Atlanta journalist published this letter a few days later. Tamla Horsford's name and case spread across the internet. starting with protesters right there in Cumming, Georgia, who included her name on their signs, alongside the names of Black Americans who have been murdered by the police in recent years. Even if the suspect isn't a police officer, the police have obviously failed to solve it. Period. And that's on poo. And that's on period. A Change.org petition calling for the case to be reopened amassed more than 586,000 signatures. And rappers T.I. and 50 Cent shared posts about the case asking for there to be a second investigation. On June 12th, 2020, Forsyth County Sheriff Ron Freeman sent a letter requesting that the case be reopened and investigated by the GBI. He stated that the investigation would be best undertaken by an independent law enforcement agency. The GBI agreed to reopen the case on June 18th, 2020. But did not specify when this investigation would begin. And that is all the information we have so far in the case of Tamla Horsford. What do you think? Well, before I can even ask that, we're going to get into some theory talk that I wrote down. Now, one thing I want to point out is that there are lots of theories about there being racial motivations behind this case. Cumming is already a small town filled with mostly white people. Forsyth County as a whole is notorious for its racism. In 1912, they had what was called a racial cleansing because they blamed 2 local black men for the rapes of 2 white women and literally chased every single black resident out of the town. There were a little over 1,000 black people living in Forsyth County at the time. They chased every black person out of town, and as recent as 1990, there were only 14 people living in Forsyth County that were black. So there definitely could be some racial undertones to this case. I don't doubt it for a second. Another thing brought up is how did someone with that high of a blood alcohol content manage to fall over a 4-foot tall railing? Also, why wasn't the scene preserved or evidence tested? Why weren't potential witnesses interviewed immediately? Why did nobody give a What really happened when the back door was left open that one last time, right around 2 a.m.? And furthermore, why was it left open until the next morning? And lastly, how could a house full of people, most of whom were barely asleep, not hear this woman fall? That doesn't make any sense to me that this happened, we're guessing around 1:57, which is the last time the door was opened. And Jean and her boyfriend, Jose, had just went to bed at like 1:30. They hadn't even been asleep for a half hour. And you mean to tell me you don't hear this woman fall? Nobody in the house hears her fall. I definitely think that Jose Barrera had something to do with it, simply because why else would he be trying to access the incident report? I'll rephrase. He either A, had something to do with it, or B, was helping somebody. I feel like it's really suspicious, the whole conversation about how he would be annoyed that she was smoking. I feel like maybe she went out to the balcony so she could smoke, and Jean discovered her, and something happened, accidental or otherwise, that killed her. That's my theory. It just doesn't make sense to me that even other partygoers are saying, what the f***? Why did Tamla die? How did Tamla die? What happened that night? The bitch didn't just fall. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not buying that shit for a minute. If her friends and other people that were there aren't buying that shit, neither am I. So, what do you guys think happened to Tamla that night? Also, how did a 14-foot fall cause all these severe injuries? But I would love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions on what happened in this case. please leave them below. And as always, leave any suggestions you might have of cases for me to cover. But anyways, I'm going to get off of here because it has been a long day and mama needs to smoke some more and hit the hay. I rhymed. I am that bitch. As always, I am Babs Money, aka Dragatha Christie, and I am signing off for now. Good night. Until next time, money chasers.